We're ready to have an interesting, exciting, should I say, impacting, rich, field discussion segment right here on the Africa Daily Show. And I know you don't want to miss anything. Today we're looking at racism. This is not the first time we've looked at racism. We've looked at it in different terms and in different forms. And more often than not, we've addressed it from various continents, various stages, and today we'd actually be speaking to somebody very, very interesting as well on the show. But before then, I have my two colleagues with me here. I have, I have, I have actually Miss Mort. You actually know her, right? Do I need to introduce her? No, she was already here from the beginning of the show. So yeah.
Yeah, what's up, people? I'm still here, still
Okay,
repping.
fine, sure. Okay,
Yay!
it's Hafiz.
Evie,
Yeah, some sanity.
I don't get you.
No, Maud was just off the bridge. Okay, so I have on the line Mr. Abu Akil, and this is not the first time we're speaking to him. So if you've been listening, you know him. This is like the third time we have him on the show. And he is the co chair of the Global African Congress. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yourself?
I'm well, thank you. Not as warm as you are.
Pudding?
Here in the motherland. I'm here in cool. I'm not as warm as you are. I'm here in the cool freezer of the UK.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's quite warm here, but we believe you're keeping warm.
I'm trying my best. I've got my scarf on.
You've got what?
Scarf.
I have my scarf on.
Okay. that is very good. That is great. I believe that is going to keep you warm for now
Try.
and for some
We
time.
have to try.
Yes, we really have to try. We really have to try. This is not your first time on the show. It's amazing to have you to come and add knowledge and wisdom to this show as we actually look at racism, which is a big thing, not just in Brazil, but then globally. It's something that racial discrimination has actually been causing quite the issues. Like I mentioned, not just in Brazil, but there's been a focus on Brazil, and it's something that I believe the Black movement have come together. The Brazil Black movement have come together to actually work on. So it's something that we're looking towards to be able to come to a place. Now, moving on to the discussion, sir. Racism. This isn't the first
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Um,
Hello, sir.
I think the reception's quite poor, so I will. Our communication is in. What I'll do is I'll do my best to respond to you as clearly as I can, even though I've not heard all of your questions.
Hello, sir. Yes, sir, please. First off, I want to find out if you can stay on. I just want to find out first and foremost, have you ever had an experience? Have you experienced racism in any form before?
Yes, racism has been a part of my perennial experience. I've been experiencing racism since the beginning of my life. So, from my very first breath of air, I was in a context of racism. And then at a later stage in my life, when I became more aware of my environment, I had direct experiences of racism that I could begin to identify as racism. So quite violent interactions, which transformed into more subtle interactions in terms of local authority employees, employees of businesses. So the first local authority employees I experienced racism from were school teachers. And so I found that school teachers would deliver a different form of behavior to me because I'm an African, because I'm categorized as black.
So then the school teachers actually were the ones that were racist towards you.
Yes, Yes, definitely. So I'll give you a vivid example of that. There was a piece of homework that I had. Our school was a stream school. We had those students who were going on to do GCSE and A levels. At the time, they were called O levels. And then you had those students who were classed as more remedial, dealing with basic education, and they had a lower level of qualification they'd go for called CSE. So in our school, the students, we had 10 layers of classes. The top class, 1, was going for GCSE. So that was 1 to 4. 4 to 7, 8 were classes for people doing CSE. And then 9 and 10 was the people who had profound behavioral issues. So I was in the stream for students who were to go on to do GCSE. Now, in my school, the majority, I would say 70% of the students were in the black students were in the lower classes. I was the only one in the class, in the group, that of 4 classes, 1 to 4, heading for GCSE. So that was structural, that was institutional racism. It wasn't just the activities of a single teacher, it was the activity of the entire school, which made it institutional.
That is very true. That's very true. But I believe much awareness over the years has been put on racism. And one thing I just want to find out, can you say that progress has been made in the fight against racism? And if really progress has been made, how much progress are we talking about?
I think the only progress that we can make with regard to racism is around the empowerment of Africans. That is the marker of change. Our conditions changing materially. And so in terms of progress, an example of progress is the independence of Ghana, for example. That's an institutional change that signifies progress, with a progressive leader advancing an agenda around a nation that serves the interests of African people in the diaspora. That's a structural change. So the more we're empowered, the more there is a change. However, what we're seeing currently in terms of the change, because change has to be structural, conversations around the change are conversations, and conversations can be seen as something, because out of ideas comes material change, but the ideas have to translate into material practice. So for the 21 Days Against Racism campaign, it's about raising people's awareness so they can change their practice. So the 21 Days Against Racism is a signifier of change, much as the independence of Ghana is a signifier of change and empowerment of African people. But much more fundamental to that is an actual real hardware change. We're seeing a software or some kind of software change insofar as the ideas are being presented. However, the hardware change is about a fundamental reorganization in the resourcing of our lives. So as long as you have orphans living on the streets of African capitals, in a position of being marginalized from the economy, we're not seeing a hardware change. These are the fundamental measures. As long as we can see in the schools in the UK that there's a disproportionality of students being in the lower tiers of the educational opportunity and not equally represented in the upper tiers of educational opportunity. So in England, the lower tier of educational opportunities is not being able to access exams and do sit exams. At the higher tier, you have people who are in Oxford and Cambridge and are doing PhDs. So the fundamental hardware measure of change is whether that proportionality has shifted. And I'm saying that proportionality has not shifted. We're still seeing the same disproportional impact. We're still not seeing African professors in these hallowed white plantocrat institutions developing the kinds of curricula that can advance all of humanity as opposed to a small white minority of humanity, who are from a plantocrat class, an exploitative class that relies on the hierarchy of race.
Yes, one thing you made mention of the hardware and the software change now.
Yeah,
And as much as we've not seen, per what you said, we've not seen much change or shift when it comes to the hardware. Can you identify some of the key stakeholders who could help in, catalyzing this hardware change?
I think the key change agents are, for me, it starts from everyday Africans, such as ourselves, having these kinds of conversations. Because as Africans, we need to know what it is that's inhibiting us. We need to know what's causing the buffering. We need to know, as I'm a little kid, I'm a child in Accra, and I just can't get I just can't get that little opportunity. I just can't get it. What is creating that situation for that child in Accra? And so that's the challenge. And that's where that little child in Accra needs to be empowered by a thought process, by opportunities being availed. And so the change agents, the agents of change, is African people being clear about what is causing the buffering. And for me, it's very clear what's causing the buffering. It's very clear what is causing the blockage. And the blockage is a group of people in Europe who consider themselves to be more important than everybody else on the planet. And we have to refer and we have to be clear who these people are. They are the plantocrats, the people who established the plantation, the people who established the continent as a big plantation for not only raw materials, but also for people. They harvested our people and carried them to the Caribbean, and they harvest our raw materials today. So our cocoa, our coffee, our rubber, all of our raw materials are being harvested by plantocrats, a small group of Europeans, white Europeans, who have maintained a disproportionate trade in the global resources where most global resources move in their direction. I think there's something about Africans recognizing that is the axiom of our abject poverty, because that's where we're found. Wherever we are in the world, we are at the bottom end of the system insofar as being held in conditions of poverty. From Brazil to Australia to America to the Caribbean to the UK and across Europe, we're concentrated as the datum of a class system. We're always overrepresented at the bottom of this system, and we have to recognize that this is a global system that's in place, and we have to change our relationship to it, change our thinking by identifying what the cause of the problem is, what is the stone in our shoes, and then have a way of being that removes that stone from our shoes. Change the relationship fundamentally. Change the relationship between blackness and whiteness. These two ideas, or this idea that you have a black race and a white race, is a falsification of reality. It's a false idea. And it's a false idea that maintains a hierarchy of experience. Once we dropped that false idea, we had a Black Power movement that dropped that false idea. And cutting that false idea emerged in Southern Africa when Africans mobilized in Sharpeville and said, no, our lives or are of equitable value to everybody else's. We cannot be seen in the line of chattel, just raw material for others to move around at their will. So at the point we recognize that this is no longer acceptable, as in Sharpeville, the mobilization of African people against the hierarchy, and that Sharpeville massacre, that response to the Sharpeville massacre, is actually the touchstone for the 21 days campaign. But the 21 days against
Activism,
racism,
yes.
as activism, is rooted in the, um, the, 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 the UN International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination,
Yes.
which is annually observed on the day that the police in Sharpeville, South Africa, opened fire and killed 69 people at a peaceful demonstration against apartheid pass law in 1960. So our activism is the force of change. That's what causes the change. Us as Africans being active and saying, no, you're not more valuable than me because you're white. You're not more valuable than me because you went to Harvard or Cambridge. We have inherent value and need to be respected.
Definitely. I think most of the change will also start from the mindset, the mentality. But moving slightly away from that, there have been a lot of discussions. I mean, following the recent revelations that were made by the Duchess of Sussex, I mean, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Now, first of all, I want to find out, did you find any of those revelations shocking?
No, I mean, for me, what was shocking was that people didn't realize that this is the culture, or I shouldn't call it culture because culture is developmental. These are the behavioral patterns that exist within that plantocrat family, because it is a plantocrat family. Its premise is based upon racism. Their whole strength, their way of being is based as plantocrats. They are the lead plantocrats on the planet. So to join that family, one would expect the set of behaviors that this young lady experienced. I was surprised that people were surprised. I'm
Yep.
still shocked. And I guess it's based upon a lack of awareness, a lack of people doing what they're supposed to be doing. People are gazing and they haven't got their eye on the road. They're not staring, they're not looking at the road. They're gazing somewhere at fantasies, the wedding dresses and the glitter and the glamour of this kind of fantasy, this idealism that has very little bearing on the reality.
On the ground, that is true. That is true. I believe that, per the reasons you've given, that actually will account for the largely negative reaction in the UK to the interview that was given.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the reaction in the UK is a defensive reaction because that institution, what gives the UK its strength is, well, they perceive it as the UK has been based upon the exploitation of Africans. The wealth in the UK is based upon the theft, the crime against Africans. The United Nations identified in 2001 that the transatlantic capture of Africans is a crime against humanity,
Yeah.
has always been a crime against humanity, and will always be a crime against humanity until actions are taken to redress the crime. And so in the UK, there's a resistance to tackling that crime. The UK government has been resistant to following the process that the UN, that was agreed at the UN in the Durban Declaration and Programme of Action in 2001, to take the kinds of make the kinds of structural changes in policy, in the relationship between Africans in the UK and the state. They've they've not taken the process seriously. They've not engaged in the process. What they've done is, and what the culture in the UK is denial. So whenever you experience racism, you're left with this response that it's all in your head. You're just imagining.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't, it's, and that's where the way they're working on this young lady, Megan, by she's just imagining it. The royal family is lovely and fantastic. The Queen's such a lovely person. I hear Africans in the UK saying that Charles is a lovely guy because he came and he visited people in the poorer areas where there are lots of black people, and he was dancing to reggae music, dancing to our music. So they turn this thing into an individual petty thing, just
Yes.
because rather than recognizing there's a structural issue here, man.
That is true.
And that's kind of there's a dialogue in the UK it's very much a denial
It
dialogue.
it really is, because I mean, when he was actually asked directly if the royal family was racist, he emphatically said no.
Yeah, which is weird. It's strange. It's strange that he can get away with it, but again, it's about the way that the media functions as well. Because if he were in a space where people were fully aware and having been honest people, real people, they would say, look, man, like, how can you say that the royal family is not racist when all of its wealth is based upon the enslavement of our people?
That is true. That is true. I believe that's
They've never, yeah.
yeah, that's true. That's one of the main reasons. I mean, we have a lot of activisms going on now. Our final question before we actually do let you go is, how are you hoping to measure impact by the end of the 21 days of activism against racism in Brazil?
My measurement of the impact will be based around how far the conversation has extended. So, how much are people listening to Africa Global Radio? How far has the conversation shifted? Are there now new words in the vocabulary? Are people now beginning to see institutional racism as opposed to it being little interpersonal things? How much are people engaging actively in challenging it? How far, say, in Ghana, for example, are people seeing the connection between the poverty that people experience and the marginalization from the economy? How much are they connecting that with racism? And I know on the African mainland, it's very difficult for people to make the bridge between racism and their experience because you've got an African majority. And so it becomes quite difficult. So one of the measures for me is how sophisticated are people becoming in recognizing that racism is a global system. That's one of the measures, recognizing that racism is a global system. And another measure is how far we're talking to each other. How much conversation are we having between the UK and Africans in the UK, Africans in Nigeria, Africans in Ghana, Africans in Guyana, Africans in Jamaica, Africans in Australia, Africans in India? How much are we linking up? That's one of the critical measures because we are a global family. How much more are the family, the Fanti family who are living in Ghana connecting with the Fanti family who are living in Ireland? How far are the Yoruba family in Ghana connecting with the Yoruba family in Nigeria? And these connections, how much more are we connecting as a family? Because one of the primary tools of racism is to divide the family, divide our African family up. So I think that's one of the fundamental measures. How much more are we connecting with each other?
That is very, very true. I'm actually like very, very grateful for this opportunity. But I do have my colleagues here, my co-hosts in the show, and they have a question for you. So I'll bring Hafiz on first, and he's gonna ask you his question.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. We've been very blessed to have you on the show to shed light on some of the aspects of racism we didn't know existed. But I have a question here, and my question is simple. I want to know how important symbolic gestures are in the fight against racism. Now, in England, every now and then before a kickoff in a game, we see players taking a knee. Some have actually raised concerns that that gesture is like, I mean, flogging a dead horse, basically. What's your take on that? What do you make of all the gestures we see in the fight against racism?
I think we've had a meeting on that at the weekend around a similar the whole thing around symbolism.
Yeah.
And if we're really going to tackle racism is about symbolism. So one of the major symbol around racism is that if you're black, you're from one race. If you're white, you're from another race. And most people believe this symbolism. It's a fantastic lie. But it's a fantastic lie that impacts on the majority of people on the planet. So symbolism is actually the most powerful tool that human beings have. Human beings, we're speaking now through the symbol of language. Language is just symbolism. We're just talking abstract sounds that connect with a reality. So the human experience is a largely symbolic experience. Now, how we shift this symbolic experience lies in how we can galvanize people around some overwhelming experience. And that taking the knee symbolically says we are connecting our experience on this football pitch of people throwing bananas and calling us monkeys with the experience of our family in America who are saying, we don't want any more of this. Everybody can see now that you murdered our brother, George Floyd, by kneeling on his neck. And we connect with that. We connect with the feeling of the knee on our neck. We connect with we can't breathe. It's making that connection. So the symbolism is a galvanizing of the experience in a way that makes it vividly clear that we're connecting and we're not accepting and challenging the status quo in as subtle a way as we can. Because I might not be able to grab your bank book and take my money back, but what I can do is say I don't accept and I don't tolerate in as diplomatic a way as possible. But it's quite a diplomatic gesture.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I believe that is all. But we want to say a big thank you for making time for joining and actually shedding more light on the whole racism issue. Thank you so much once again. And we hope to further expand the conversation.
Thank you.
Maud would like to say something.
Hi.
Hi, Sister Moore.
Okay, so on the list of events we have for the 21 days of activism against racism in Brazil, it states that today we are having, sorry, joint international activities around the globe. Could you list some of these activities and where they are happening so that if anybody is listening, they can be able to join in?
I will have to share them with you in another. Caught me short. What I'll have to do is get a list sent to you.
Okay.
There are so many activities, and I've been overwhelmed by activities. It's been non-stop.
Okay.
Since the first. So and the list is constantly being updated. So what I'm going to have to do is send you the list. Is that okay? My apologies.
Oh, that's fine. You can actually share the list with me. Then I'll tell them to our audiences as the days go by. Since it's ending on the 21st, so we have like
Yeah.
4 days more.
The one that we have in the UK is on the 21st. We've got an activity on the 21st that I can recall, and it's going to be bringing together everyone around the Sharpeville massacre. So we'll have somebody from the Pan-African Congress of Azania, that some people call South Africa. There'll be somebody from America speaking about the Selma march, and somebody from Brazil
Okay.
speaking about 21 days and Zumbi. So that will be on the 21st, but I'll get the details to you.
Okay.
There are
Okay.
activities up until then.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for you and the team at Africa Global Radio inviting me. You're a fantastic team, and it's fantastic to hear and engage with people in our family. Thank you.
Thank you once again. Have a nice day and do keep the cold away.
I will.
Okay. Well, you're still listening to the Africa Daily Show. We'll be taking a short one before we jump into the court of Miss Maud. But then I take final words from my co-host on the team if they have any.
Well, I mean, he's made clear a lot of things. I mean, I've learned a new word today, plantocrats, and yes, talking about the depletion of not just our natural resources, but uh, you know, Africa constantly losing her youngest and brightest in terms of human resource. And so, but I've listened to him a couple of times, especially on the 6th of March,
Yes.
where we
They
partnered.
had,
Yeah,
yes.
we had that partnership where we had a conversation on that, and I listened to him share a personal experience of how he, got his head smashed as a kid,
Yes.
simply
Yes,
because,
I also listened to
yes,
that
and
one.
so it's quite an interesting insight. As to everything going on around racism. I wish we could have had more time with him. I mean, but I mean, it's just eye opening the
Well,
sort of things we have out there. But
since
then,
it's still ongoing, would have more
yeah,
time.
but
Yeah.
then, just quickly on a quick one, when he talked about plantocrats, I mean, something hit home for me because there was something I read some time back. Just quickly on that, in terms of the resources and how, you know, especially when you asked him the question about Meghan Markle and what the reaction is like, if indeed there was any form of shock. He said he wasn't shocked, and in fact, uh, I mean, it only goes to confirm some of the rumors they've always heard about the monarchy. Now, here's the thing: the largest cut diamond in the world, the largest cut diamond in the world, called the Star of Africa. Guess where it is? Just take a wild guess.
England.
England, where?
London. The palace.
In the scepter of the Queen. Yes, and this is the largest cut diamond in the world. It's worth about 530.2 carats. Now there are actually two. The second one, which is the second star of Africa, guess where it is?
In the same place.
Yes, actually this time in her crown. Yes, and and it's worth around 317.4 carats. So make of that what you will.
You know,
And to add to that,
yeah.
I think I saw a video where they were saying they have a gold, I think, is it a gold hub,
Reserve.
a gold reserve
That
in the
was,
United Kingdom,
yeah, gold reserve. I think that's actually
Was
about
it
France.
France? Yes,
Right.
that was
but
France.
they
I saw
don't
that about
have a
France.
gold
Mine,
mine.
yes,
Yes.
France. I saw that about France as well. They have like enough gold reserves, but then all the mining is not done in France. It's done here in Africa.
When we start with France, we won't leave here today. So, so
As for those people, I don't want to start their own yet.
Yeah, Hafiz, did you land?
yeah, I'm done.
Okay, and yes, he made some great submissions, and the one that
Stayed with you
stayed with me was how much conversations are we having
on this, yeah.
on this subject? I mean, we find ourselves in a state where African Americans see themselves different from Africans on the continent.
You hit the nail right on the head.
So, how much conversations are we having? Why are they seeing themselves as superior to Africans? I believe this is a conversation we should have.
We should actually have it.
And how Africans in other parts of the world can band together. How much conversations are Africans in Europe having with Africans in the United Kingdom, having with Africans in the Americas, in the Asias, in the Chinas? How much conversation are we having? What can we do? What can we do to make these people see that we are the same people? We are basically fighting for the same things.
I think
We don't experience racism, but we are in here shouting Black Lives Matter, I can breathe, and all of that, and we are supporting the fight. So why? Where is that superiority coming from?
You know, when he actually mentioned the fact that Africans at home have to connect, you know, the Yoruba family at home has connected Yoruba family in the UK, and I almost said these people themselves actually, sometimes it's not subtle, but they throw a shade at you and
Oh,
make you feel like I
It's not
saw.
most of the time. It's not
And
that. I remember. I
I
think
actually
on
even saw a room on Clubhouse, and you know the name of the room? Reason why African Americans have issues with Africans on the continent.
well,
I
I
didn't
think
even bother to
on
enter the room.
Ghana's Independence Day there was a whole lot of talk. Apparently, there was a room on Clubhouse, and they said some things about how it is their mothers who send us money before we can buy MTN bundle and all of that.
We honestly don't want to dig into that conversation right now because it's going to turn into a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
We've had a wonderful segment with Mr. Akil, and it was really enlightening.